Welcome to those who are with us. We're going to get started in just a few moments. Hi, Serafina.
Okay, hello.
I figure we give it another like 1 or 2 minutes, let some people kind of roll in, and then we'll get started.
Awesome. Oh, before we begin, how do you pronounce your last name?
Weir, W-E-I-R.
Gotcha.
Like weird without the D, as my mother likes to say.
Hello, David. Thanks for coming in. All right. I think for the sake of time, we might go ahead and get started. Before I turn it over to Serafina to introduce everyone and get us rolling, I just want to mention that we are in webinar format, so we do have a Q&A special feature in the bottom of your Zoom call. You'll see Q&A. As you have questions, go ahead and throw them in there. I will also have my chat open. So should you have any questions that you want to send privately or any messages you want to send in general, feel free to do so. All right, Serafina.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say hello, everyone. My name is Serafina Neitzel, and I'm the Vice President of Phi Theta Kappa's College Project. I wanted to start off by thanking all of you for being here today, and a special thank you to our guest speakers for coming on and sharing some wonderful information about personal finance, the importance of budgeting, scholarships, and overcoming student loans. So to dive a bit more into depth, this event is going to consist of 2 panelists, Vee Weir and David Harrell, who will further discuss the physical and psychological aspects of monetary budgeting. Now, I'm sure at one point in time, we've all struggled with budgeting, overspending, or just finances in general, some cases more serious than others. Or maybe you've worried about your next steps after Pellissippi. How will you earn scholarships or afford to attend the university? Well, this panel is going to strive to answer all of your questions while discussing all things money, scholarships, student loans, and financial aids. With that being said, I would love to now introduce our first speaker, Vee Weir. Vee is a 29-year-old nationally recognized personal finance expert living in Boulder, Colorado. Vee is owner and founder of Vee Frugal Fox, which began as a personal blog to document her journey of paying off $71,000 of debt, but has evolved into an inclusive online personal finance space that helps people pay off their debt, save, and invest their money in a shame-free way. Her goal is to make money accessible to all. In addition to Vee Frugal Fox, Vee is a co-owner of Weir Digital Marketing, a full-service firm that is focused on helping creators in the personal finance space educate others on all things money. Vee has been featured in Business Insider, CNBC, Forbes, MSN, and more. When she's not talking about finance, she is hiking with her husband and 3 dogs across the national park. Everyone, let's please welcome Vee.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be here. All right, so I guess I'm going to get started on my presentation. Let us share my screen. I just would like to share. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Nope. Okay. So I wanted to approach this presentation as what I wish I had known about money in your shoes, essentially. When I was a community college student and a Phi Theta Kappa, when I became a Phi Theta Kappa member, rather, I knew nothing about money. Absolutely nothing. I've become what I've become basically from self-education, which I actually find is very common in personal finance, because a lot of people learn personal finance from their parents or from school, and usually school isn't that sufficient at teaching personal finance. The best we get is economics, and a lot of that isn't really applicable to personal finance. So I wanted to show 5 things that I wish I knew about money as a college student, and things that have really changed my life. A little bit about me. Who am I and why should you care? Obviously, the money pictures are the highlight of this. So I am a money expert and entrepreneur. As said before, I've been featured across a plethora of national press outlets. I paid off $71,000 in 5 years. And in between those 5 years, there was a lot of life, which we'll talk about. But now I spend my time as a content creator and a ghostwriter for the personal finance community. I am the owner and founder of Vee Weir and Weir Digital Marketing, which coincide with each other. But basically, I create a ton of content for personal finance, bloggers, podcasters, Instagrammers, you name it, I create it. I was a Phi Theta Kappa member in 2013. I graduated from Cape Fear Community College with an Associate of the Arts, and then I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and graduated in 2015 with a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies and a minor in Women's and Gender Studies. A little bit of extra information that's not really pertinent, but learn more about me. I was born in North Carolina. I live in Boulder now. I'm married. I'm a dog mom of 3. I hike all across the country, mostly national parks. I create handmade soaps. I love beer, coffee, and food trucks. And I absolutely hate laundry, all things laundry, not just putting away laundry, but yeah. So my financial independence journey started in 2016. I had just graduated from UNC, and I remember sitting at my dining room table, and I was looking over my numbers, which I had never done before. So this was new to me. I was looking at it and I realized that I couldn't pay for my food, my medication, and my student loan payments that were coming. And that's basically when it hit me that I was in some deep crap. I didn't realize when I took out my student loans how I knew I was going to have to pay them back. But at the time when you're signing up for student loans, you're in the mindset of, I just have to pay for college somehow. I don't care how, I just have to do it. And a lot of people don't really look at the fine print. They don't know what their payments are going to be. They don't know the interest rate, all of that. They just see, I need a degree to get a job. And that was me, especially because I didn't grow up with a personal finance education. When I graduated high school, I had no idea what that even looked like. So actually, I remember being at ECU, which was the first college I actually attended. I transferred out to Cape Fear. I remember being in the basement of the Student Union Center and looking up Parent Plus loans because that was the only loan that I could get, which for those of you who don't know, Parent Plus loans are the absolute worst loans that you can get. They have the highest interest rates. It's just a terrible, it's a last resort kind of thing. Anyway, I got one because it was a last resort kind of thing. So that's where my journey started in 2016, looking at my bills, knowing that I couldn't afford the medication that I needed in my life and food. So I looked up how to budget. I opened up an Instagram like any millennial would do. I started an Instagram page to document my journey. And that's how I started. I connected with people all across the world. I think one of my first followers was from New Zealand, actually. So I had followers in New Zealand and Great Britain and all across America. And when I first started, there weren't many creators out there doing this. It was very, very new. But then fast forward to 2017, and my ex-husband and I were working on our debt-free journey. And we were so close to paying it off, and we separated. And that was another rock bottom moment. I had paid all this money and I had been kicked out of my house. I moved back in with my parents. I had a 15-year-old car and less than $1,000 in my savings account. So that was 2017. In 2018, things got better. But I went back into debt because I financed a car because my 15-year-old car decided to die, as they do. And then in 2019, I lost my job. So my debt-free journey has had many highs and lows. But honestly, that's life. And I like to show that not everything is linear. It is definitely oscillated for me. But then it really turned around from 2019 to now. When I lost my job, I decided, I don't have anything else to lose. I'm just going to start my own business. And that's how my marketing firm was born. I just decided to take a chance on myself, and it has paid off. Now I am an industry leader in the personal finance community, nationally recognized. I help other industry leaders with their content. I remarried, and I paid off my debt this year. I paid off my car that I financed this year. So now I am completely debt free. So all that to say, I have basically made all of the mistakes that you can think of. I mean, outside of payday loans, I have made all of the mistakes. I've married the wrong person that wasn't on my same financial path, which is a huge mistake. I've financed cars. I've been in credit card debt. I have taken out a huge student loans. So I want to chat about that today. And I want to chat about that so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So here are 5 things I wish I had known about money when I was sitting where you're sitting. Emergency fund, avoiding debt, investing. Please take note of number 3. Learn to live below your means, and then focus on increasing your income. And we'll go through all of these, obviously. Number 1 is save an emergency fund, and do not wait until you're out of college. Do not wait till tomorrow. Start now. Like literally open an account right now. So according to the Federal Reserve, 40% of Americans couldn't handle a $400 emergency. And this is a statistic that comes up over and over in the personal finance industry, because this is really what we go to try to solidify the fact that if you have a $400 emergency and you can't pay for it, that means you're going into debt. So what we want to do is eliminate that stressor completely. Because life is unfortunately going to happen. And there is a common rule of thumb in personal finance, save $1,000 initially. I don't subscribe to that. My thing is you need to save at least 1 month of expenses for your emergency fund, because, and this will also vary. Personal finance is personal, and your life might not need that big of a cushion, especially if you're in college and you're still being supported by your parents, but still you need to get into the habit, like flex that saving muscle. Because, if you have a home, if you have an older car, if you have dependents, if you have pets, you're going to need a bigger emergency fund. So that is to avoid going into debt, especially credit card debt, because of the interest rates being so high. Because debt, especially early on in your life, is the enemy of early financial progress. And that's really why you need an emergency fund, so that you can take care of emergencies that come up. And also, it's also a psychological thing. When something happens and it's a real emergency, like say a death in the family, you don't want to be worrying about, can I afford to go home? You want to be worrying on healing and grief and things like that. Same thing with like a tire blowout. You don't want to be like, oh my God, how am I going to afford a new tire? It can be a minor inconvenience. So an emergency fund kind of makes those crises a minor inconvenience instead of a monetary problem. So the question inevitably always comes, how much should I save? And like I said, personal finance is personal. This is my real scorched earth budget. I call it scorched earth because this is what I can get rid of everything else in my budget except for my major expenses, which is transportation, housing, utilities, and food. And I do have some entertainment in there for like subscription services, because if I'm not going out to eat and doing anything else, you do want to build in that kind of thing so you're not going crazy. But this is my real scorched earth budget. And so what you do is you take 1 month's worth of expenses and you multiply it by 3, 6, 9, or 12. And that's how much you would need in your bank account for your emergency fund, 3, 6, 9 a year emergency fund. I will say, if you have debt, especially high interest debt, and you want to really attack that, save at least 1 month before you do anything. After the 1 month threshold, celebrate, go out to eat, woo, you did it. But continue to save money. A lot of people will say, don't focus on that anymore, go out and pay debt. I still think, like, even if it's just $20 a month, you're never going to regret saving that money. So keep on building that emergency fund. At least always have 1 month in there, and contribute monthly to it. This amount will look different for different people. I mean, like I said, dependents, pets, housing situation. As you'll notice, my rent is almost $2,000. Welcome to Colorado. That is what it's like to live in Boulder, Colorado, friends. So it's going to look different depending on your geographic location as well. And you should put your emergency fund in a high yield savings account. It's not going to build wealth. As you can see, the difference between a traditional and a high yield, it's a lot when you have a lot of money, but it's, again, flexing that saving muscle, flexing that compound interest muscle, and you do get a benefit. So I would recommend absolutely saving it in a high yield savings account. Most of these are going to be online banks. The reason they can give you such a high savings rate is because they don't have any brick or mortar locations, and they can give that savings to the consumer. I use Ally because they have one of the top interest rates in the country, I think 0.50%. And they also have buckets, which help you with sinking funds, which I can go over in the next slides. But again, this is my actual savings account. I have a core savings of 1 month right now, tax payments for various side hustles, which we'll talk about later, and other buckets. But you can customize these, and they're very easy to use. Another popular high yield savings account is Capital 360, Capital One 360. But many people in the personal finance community really stick with Ally, or also credit unions too. If you're just not comfortable with an online bank, which, I mean, you might not be, local credit unions are a great place. And I also, if anybody wants the slideshow, I have linked resources, just things to kind of back up what I've been saying. And also, just if you want to read more, there are tons of resources. So my number 2 thing I wish I had known while I was sitting where you're sitting is to avoid debt out of college and pay it off as quickly as possible. So this is a contested topic in the debt-free community, in the personal finance community. But it is my opinion as a professional that not all debt is bad debt at all times. It just really depends on where you are in your life, how much wealth you've amassed, and how you're using it. But for the sake of this presentation, I want to really hit home that debt straight out of college is going to kill your wealth progress. Because when you start getting into real estate and things of that nature, business, it's a totally different story. But we're talking about student loan debt, credit card debt, personal loan debt, stuff that does not appreciate in value, essentially. Anything like that is going to kill your wealth early on. So we want to focus on attacking that and getting it out of the way so that we can build wealth. Again, lots of text, but I wanted to include these statistics. The average American has $90,000 in debt, credit card debt, $6,200, and the average credit card interest rate was 15.9, which has actually gone down. A couple of years ago, it was like 17.5, which is crazy. I mean, that's crazy too, but student loan borrowers are in debt an average of $39,000-ish with a monthly payment of around $400. And then we have the statistics of new and used vehicles, which the car situation in America right now is buck wild. But the average car payment has actually increased to almost $600 a month, with used cars around $400 a month. And I say all of that because it's so important to know that if you are in debt, there is no shame in it, because most Americans are in debt. I was in debt $71,000 for a long time. I grew up in debt. Pretty much everybody I know has grown up in debt. So I want you to know that you're not alone, but it is possible to get out of it. It just takes diligence, consistency, and intentionality. So how to pay off your debt? You need to understand where your debt is located. You need to make a strategic debt payoff plan. You need to avoid new debt at all costs while you're getting out of debt. I put that in there because, again, debt can be used as leverage, but we're not talking about that. Get on a budget. Stick to your budget, which is probably the most difficult part of all of this, but it's not impossible. Use leftover money towards your debt. Keep your cost of living as low as you can, and remember that this is a journey. When I started my personal finance journey, I was very low income. I mean, I had just gotten out of college, so I was very low income, first job kind of thing, and I was also in debt. And I saw people who were older than me, and they made $120,000, $150,000 a year, and they knocked that stuff out in a year, 2 years. And I'm sitting over here with my little tiny, like $35,000 a year, salary. Like, oh, this is gonna take me a long time. So the personal finance journey, the wealth building journey, learning about money is a lifelong process. So please remember, this is a marathon and not a sprint. Some people will get out of debt very quickly. Some people won't. Again, 5 years. I literally got out of debt this year. So, and I've been doing this for a very long time. So it's just, you got to have some grace and understand that personal finance is personal, and your story is not somebody else's story. And just remember that if you're intentional with money, you will build wealth. So understand your debt and where it's located. The first thing you're going to do when you want to get out of debt is know what debt you have to get out of. So you're going to want to write down all of your debts. And if you don't know where all of them are, they're going to be on your credit report, which your bank is by law allotted to give you one credit report per year for free. So you can pull that and it'll show you all of your debts. You can also check sites like Credit Karma and Credit Sesame. Checking those sites will not ding your credit score or anything like that. It's just there for your knowledge, for you to monitor your credit score. That's how I personally monitor my credit score. I don't think I've pulled a bank statement credit report officially in like 3 or 4 years. So it's up to you. But you also need to make sure that you have all of your passwords, how to pay them, and make sure that it's in a safe, secure place. I recommend LastPass for all of my password sharing. Wonderful. Choose a debt payoff plan. And I listed these three. There are many debt payoff plans, but these are probably the top three. Number one and number two, I have personally used. Number three, I mean, I hated all of my debt, but you'll see. The debt snowball method. This is the most popular debt payoff method in the personal finance community. Essentially, you list all of your debts from lowest amount owed to highest amount owed, regardless of interest rate. You pay all of the minimums on your debts, except for the lowest amount owed. For the lowest amount owed, you put all of your money towards that debt outside of the minimum payments. So for example, I did an example. I listed them from lowest to highest, or highest to lowest. And what you would do is you would pay all the minimum payments for your student loan, your car loan, your credit card. But for your personal loan, you would throw all of your money, as much as you can, to the personal loan to knock it out real quick. Once you knock that out, you move on to the next one. And essentially, it's really great for people who, this is what I did when I started, because I had no idea what the heck I was doing. So I really needed that quick win. I needed to pay off my debt and see that it could be done. So it's a really great way to keep motivation. It's more psychological because you really need to feel that sense of accomplishment, and it keeps you going. The debt avalanche method is similar, except you attack your debt by interest rate. So you would attack them by highest interest rate. So the first one you would do was your credit card, and then you would go down the list. This is the best for saving money on interest. If you're a math nerd, I turned into the debt avalanche method. I got kind of halfway in my journey and I was like, oh, this interest is killing me. So I decided to switch and pay my student loan off before a car loan. And I don't regret it at all. And then the most hated debt method, which is, if you hate your personal loan the most, that's the one you would pay off. I think this is probably even more psychological than the debt snowball method, just because this is best for people who are super emotional spenders, impulse spenders, people who hate budgeting usually. This is going to keep you motivated because you are attacking something that you just absolutely just disgusts you. I've known a couple of people who have used this method very successfully. It just all depends on what you have to know yourself, who you are, the way you operate. If paying a bunch of money for interest is going to kill you, you should probably do the debt avalanche. If you need the quick win, debt, nope. Yeah, debt avalanche, debt snowball for a quick win. And then if you just you hate a loan so much that you just want it out of your life and you cannot stop thinking about it, most hated. And again, there are many other debt payoff methods. I suggest Googling. I mean, that's what I did, but those are the top three. The next thing is avoiding new debt. I use a metaphor. When you are becoming debt free, it's like you're digging a hole and you're digging yourself out of the hole, right? If you go and get new debt, it's like taking that pile of dirt that you just dug out and putting it back in there. So don't do that. I mean, I've cut up my credit cards. I literally stopped going to Target. I know it's so basic, but I stopped shopping. I unsubscribed to all of the retailer emails that I got. I got on a budget. You want to do everything you can to avoid new debt. And when you get out of college, everyone's like, oh, when are you going to get a new car? When are you going to get a house? When are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? That's how society works. And it's okay to not subscribe to that. And it's okay to not get a new car. It's okay to use the car you've got. It's okay to live in an apartment and rent with people because it lowers your cost of living. Anything you can do to avoid new debt, you need to do it. Otherwise, you're not making any progress in your wealth building journey. So with that, getting on a monthly budget. I'm sorry. I know everybody was probably like, I knew this was coming. The B word. Everybody hates budgeting except for me. I love budgeting. But you really can't talk about personal finance without creating a monthly budget, because that's really where the magic happens. I think people hear the word budget and they think super restrictive, like counting pennies, sitting in your apartment with no furniture, twiddling your thumbs, like not doing anything, just being really boring and cheap and living your life by the dollar. I've done that before, and I can completely say that it was a mistake, and don't do that, because you're just going to resent yourself, resent your budget, and break it. And then you're going to be like, I'm not paying off debt. This is stupid. And that's going to be that. So you need to create a realistic budget, not a restrictive one. And only you can know yourself, know what you spend money on, and what budgeting method is going to work for you. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the top 4 budgeting methods that are the most popular, and a few that I have used. I still use the zero-based budget. It's what works for me. The other budgets just don't work for me, so I don't use them, but they might work for you. So what I can say is just try different things. Budgeting, I think people think, you have to stick with one thing, but if it's not working, switch it up. The zero-based budget is essentially accounting for every dollar that you bring in and everything that you spend. So at the end of the month, your line items all equal out to 0. That doesn't mean that you have $0 in your checking account. I build in a buffer of about $500. That way, just in case anything happens, which, spoiler alert, something always happens, there's money in there so that I'm not screwed, essentially. The no budget budget is for people that hate budgeting and can't budget. It's essentially having a loose idea of where your money is going, and at the end of the month, you put whatever is in your account onto savings, debt, or investing. The cash envelope system is the zero-based budget, but you have physical envelopes with cash. Again, this is for people who have major spending problems and need to have that clear, consistent boundary of, there is no money in my grocery envelope. I cannot go get more groceries. I have to eat what I have. That was very, very popular when I started my financial journey. I think with the development of apps and different things to make online budgeting easier, that's kind of dwindled down, but some people still swear by it. I mean, it's great for people who have spending problems, because that is a clear boundary. Like, if you don't have any fun money left, you can't go out and spend impulsively. And then I did the 50-30-20 budget, which is like a combination of the no budget, zero-based budget. It's a little more strict than the no budget budget. You have a 50% needs, 30% wants, 20% savings, and you just track your spending. And as long as it's in those percentages, you're fine. So, like I said, I mess up every month, and I am a nationally recognized professional money expert. If someone tells you their budget is perfect, they are lying to you, because no one's budget is perfect. No one. Something always goes awry. Something always comes up. I forget something. I don't forget bills because they're all automated, which I 100% think everybody should do. Takes the guessing game out of it. But it's just, my point is budget is a living document. It's not a strict document. And when you go over budget, the greatest thing is you can go into another line item and move money over. But you're going to mess up. You're going to fail. You're going to forget something, especially in the beginning. When you're starting to automate your bills, you're probably going to forget one. So it's okay. Everybody I know, every budgeting expert I know messes up. The important thing is that you have clear goals. You know where your money is going, and you're tracking your expenses, because being intentional with money is really what we're after here. That's what budgeting is really about, is knowing your numbers, knowing where your money is going, and making sure that your goals and your spending are aligned. Because if you have financial goals, but you don't know where your money is going, you can't reach those financial goals. So keep budgeting, keep adjusting, keep moving forward. Even if you're like, I have done this for half a year, Vee, and I'm still messing up. Yeah, you're going to mess up. That's just life. But you just keep doing it, and you'll get better and better at it. Now, all that being said, use extra money towards debt from your budgeting, because usually when people start to budget, they're like, oh my God, I got a raise, because they track their spending. They don't spend as much because they're tracking it, and they have a nice little cushion at the end of the month. Put that money towards debt, because once you have a debt payoff plan and you have a budget, you can actually work towards that goal. And another thing is, if you get a windfall, like a bonus, tax refund, inheritance, that's another great tool to send money to debt. And that's a wonderful way to decrease your debt. I did that with my tax refunds the last 4 years. But I will say, do not forget to treat yourself. Please, please, for the love of God, treat yourself, because I put my debt payoff journey in before my divorce and after my divorce. I've paid off debt twice in my life. Before my divorce, I was very strict. I didn't do anything fun. All of the money, every single cent of my paychecks, of everything that I got, went to debt. And I was burnt out. I couldn't I couldn't see myself doing it long term. And so what you need to do is budget in fun money. You're going to want to take a vacation. Budget it in. Create a sinking fund, which is essentially a fund within your budget. You send money towards it per month. So like Christmas is coming up. I usually save $1,000 for Christmas. So each month I put away like $88 towards Christmas. And by the end, I'll have $1,000. So budget in fun, budget in those expenses. It's so important for your mental health and for the longevity of paying off debt and building wealth. Because like for me, 5 years, it took a long time. There's no way that I would have been able to do that kind of budgeting for 5 years. Ooh. Sorry. And another thing is to increase your income. And again, remember, it's a journey. It's the long term. It's not, paying off debt is just part of your journey. It's not the whole journey. And I think while I was in it, so consumed by paying off debt, that's all I thought about. But really, paying off debt's the first part, because then you get to save and invest and do all of that fun stuff. But paying off debt is just part of your journey. And a big part of that journey is increasing your income. And we'll talk about this in slides later, but you can only cut so much. It's kind of, I always, the saying of, I like cold weather because, you can put so much layers on, but in hot weather, you can only take so many clothes off, right? Before you get arrested. And it's the same thing with cutting your budget. You can only cut so much before you lose your mind. So increasing your income is super important, because it's your biggest weapon to paying off debt. Side hustles, overtime, salary negotiations. There is no shame in side hustles. I have two side hustles. I rover sit and I make soap. And that increases my income by $15,000 a year. So, I always say, try to monetize on something that you really enjoy, because the worst thing you can do is get a side hustle that you hate on top of work that you're already doing, because then you're just like, why am I doing this? Get a side hustle that you enjoy. I love making soap and I love dogs. So it just made sense for me to pivot into that role to monetize it. And I'm not saying that everything has to be monetized. Like, have your hobbies, please, because that's good for your mental health. But if you want to make extra money, side hustles are a great way to do that. And I have some resources as well on that. And if you have a job that just takes all of your mental capacity, overtime, don't try to learn a new skill. Don't try to do anything extra. Just do overtime at your current position. And then salary negotiations. I wish I could go into the wage gap and the gender gap here. Sadly, I cannot, because that would be a whole nother presentation. But salary negotiations, don't leave money on the table, advocate for yourself. Those are ways to increase your income. All right. What did I do? Okay. Here are a few budgeting apps to get you started. I personally use Mint. I've never used You Need a Budget, but I've heard amazing things. And I have used Every Dollar. Yeah, yeah. Everybody like loves You Need a Budget. And I have used Every Dollar before. I don't now, but Mint is my go-to. So, yeah. And here again, resources for you. Number 3, which is my favorite, invest early and invest often. This is probably the number one thing I really wish I had known, because I was so focused on paying off debt that I wasn't thinking about investing. And the reason that investing is so important is because people are living longer and longer, and Social Security might not be there for us in reality. So it is extremely important to take care of yourself later on in life. And I know we're not thinking about that. You know, that is not even on the forefront of my mind typically. And the only reason I became educated on it was because I was in the space. But like we talked about, high yield savings accounts, their interest rate is 0.50. A traditional is 0.09. Cash value is negative because of inflation. The average stock market return is 10% per year. You will not find anything else like that where your money is going to work for you. Here, I listed below some of the things that I've heard about investing and some of the things that I grew up thinking about investing. Like, investing isn't gambling your money. For the longest time, I thought it was just like throwing your money away or just being, facetious with your money. It's not just for old, rich, white male billionaires, millionaires. And you don't need a lot of money to invest. You can actually invest with $5. Like I said, I did this chart for you to show you the example of compound interest and how powerful it is. $10,000 in 30 years, if you just held on to it, it would lose value. It would be worth $3,000 about because of inflation. Your savings value in a high yield savings account after 30 years, $10,000 would be $11,617. In the stock market with an average return of 10%, almost $200,000 is what that $10,000 would turn into. So this is the power of compound interest. This is what's going to save you later on in life and let you retire in dignity. Again, I could have a whole presentation on investing, which I would love to do, but here are my rules for investing. And again, I want to reiterate, personal finance is personal. This is from my experience, and take it as you will. Take advantage of your company match. When you graduate, you're going to get a job, and hopefully the company will have a 401k match. A lot of people say, it's free money. Don't waste free money. But newsflash, it's not free money. It is part of your compensation package. You are getting paid that money. So you need to take advantage of that money. You need to invest in your 401k to get the company match so that you get that money the company is offering you. The earlier you do that, the more compound interest will work for you, the more money you will save later down the road. Time in the market is more important than timing the market, which is something that day traders and cryptocurrency, it kind of goes into that. But my point is the longer you have money in the market, the more it will grow. And usually long-term investing is the way to go because you can be lazy, which I don't know about you, but I love earning money and not doing anything. So invest in low-cost index funds, contribute monthly, and start where you are. Like I said, $5, you can buy a fractional share on any one of the apps, on any one of the big brokers. I personally invest most of my money in VTI, which is the Vanguard Total Index. I think the shares are $213 a piece right now. It goes up and down with the market. But that way I'm buying into the entire stock market. And the way I kind of describe index funds is if you go to the grocery store, which is your broker, and you buy a variety pack of chips, that is your index, and the different chips in there are different companies. If one of those chips fails, you still have a whole packet of chips. But if you just go to the grocery store and get a big bag of Lay's potato chips and you throw it out the window, you don't have it anymore. It failed and you're out money. So index funds are a great way to ensure that your portfolio is stable, to ensure that you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket because you want to diversify your portfolio. And it's the easiest way to increase your wealth. Over 30 years, that will perform at an average rate of 10%. And again, if what I just said makes no sense, investing is a continued learning topic. I have resources in this deck for you to check out. I have about 45 different influencer handles at the very end of this presentation. Some of them are index fund educators. So, it is something that I'm still learning, and I will always be learning. So please don't ignore investing. CJ Collins' Path to Wealth is a fantastic book. It's where I learned kind of the fundamentals of investing. There are tons of resources out there, literally on YouTube. Type in index funds and start learning today. I did want to point out, I know that in the college world right now, there is a lot of hype around investing. We got Elon Musk and Bitcoin and GME and Dogecoin to the moon, blah, blah, blah. The great thing about long-term investing in index funds is that you don't have to worry about hype. You don't have to worry about stock market dips or highs. You buy and you hold. All of this stuff and Robinhood. I do not like Robinhood as an app because they have shady business practices and their customer service is abysmal. So I don't recommend that. If you're going to do an app-based broker, M1 Finance is a very good one. And they have great customer service. But anyway, don't listen to the hype. It's really easy to go down that rabbit hole. And I'm not saying that you can't invest in cryptocurrency. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's just more volatile, and it should be a very small percentage of your portfolio. Like 98% should be index funds, 2% should be cryptocurrency kind of thing. So yeah, here's an example of what index funds are by my friend, Personal Finance Club. I am personally with Schwab. I have my Roth IRA there. Any one of these brokers are great. Just again, YouTube, how to open a Vanguard Roth IRA. It's all there for you, and it's all free. More resources. Number 4 is learn to live below your means and don't care what people think, which is my favorite. When I started my debt-free journey, people looked at me like I had 3 heads. Because they were like, oh, Americans are always in debt. You're going to die in debt. If you get out of debt, you'll get back into it, which was true. But now I'm out of it again, and I intend to stay out of it. But people are going to say all of these cliche things to you about why you can't do what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter because it's your journey and you know it's possible. There is no shame living on a budget. There's no shame in learning boundaries and learning not to give a crap about what other people think about your financial situation. I have learned that if they are not paying your bills, their opinion doesn't matter. So that is kind of my no shame financial advice in a nutshell. Live below your means, treat yourself when you can within reason. And remember that this is all about balance, and it can be done in a balancing mindset. More resources. And number 5, increase your income as often as you can, like we talked about earlier. Like I said, you can only cut your budget so much. I mean, it costs money to live, unfortunately. That's capitalism, baby. So we have to operate within that system. It's always going to cost money to exist. But at the end of the day, the biggest weapon you have is your income. The more income you have, the more money you're going to have to put towards your goals, whether that's saving, investing, or paying off debt. So we want to focus on increasing that income. Side hustles, like I said, overtime, salary negotiations, Most people increase their income by moving careers, moving jobs. Any way that you can increase your income and put the difference that you experience onto your financial goals, I would definitely pursue that. And I have some great resources for side hustles here. And you can also look at her first 100K. She has wonderful salary negotiation blog posts, and she also has a course on it as well. And that's the end. I have, like I said, a whole list of influencers. These are friends, peers, clients, but I try to get a variety of people. I mean, some of these people are focused on just budgeting, some are parenthood, some are investing, real estate. I mean, anything you could possibly want to know about personal finance, all of these people educate, and the bulk of it is free. So take advantage. Oh, right. Where to find me. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And here is all the major press that I've been in. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Vee.
You're welcome.
For the sake of time moving forward, we're going to welcome David Harrell, our very own Director of Annual Giving and Scholarships. David Harrell has over 22 years of experience with fundraising, management, and relationship building. He is very well versed in budget planning, annual giving, grant research, and much more. During his time at Pellissippi, he has made great contributions, including implementing increased diversity and inclusion within Pellissippi's scholarship program. Furthermore, he developed Pellissippi State Students Opportunity Fund, which is an emergency fund that helps at-risk students continue their education. We are very grateful to have him here at Pellissippi as well as in our panel today. Everyone, let's please welcome David Harrell.
Well, thank you very much. You've been on my LinkedIn side, I see. Definitely. I thought that's an awful lot of nice things to say, and then I realized where you got it. You all feel free to stop me at any point to ask questions. I really appreciate the presentation that we just saw. I would ditto almost everything that was said. Having struggled in my younger days with debt, I understand what it takes actually to eventually get out of debt and the relief that you have when you get to that point. It's just amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about where you go to school to start with. Because some of you all, you're at Pellissippi State now, but where are you going to go next? Some things that you need to keep in mind. Are you dealing with a for-profit institution moving forward or a nonprofit institution? From my standpoint, I don't care where you go, but financially, that's an important question because we've seen many of our Pellissippi students fall into significant debt with some poor decisions in that area. So my first thing to say is if you're getting close to leaving Pellissippi State, take a look at the schools that you're looking at. Are they a for-profit institution? There's a lot of those out there. Or are they a nonprofit institution, which would be any of your state schools, for example? The next thing that worries me the most about our students and students all across the country, and that's loans. And the things that I always recommend are this. Who are you looking at to get a loan from? Secondly, why are you looking at that particular entity to get a loan? Is it because nobody else will give you one? Then that's probably not a good decision. And then the other thing you're looking at is why do I need a loan? And then fourthly, what are the terms of this loan? Is this reasonable? It's not like federal loans. There's a lot of people charging exorbitant interest rates, and the way they're putting together many of these agreements you can be paying for a large portion of the rest of your life on loans that you probably shouldn't have taken in the first place. So those are important things. When you look at a student loan, any kind of loan, I would always ask those questions. Especially, why in the world are you dealing with the specific person you're dealing with? If it's not a federal entity or a state entity, I would ask some questions. From there, we get into student loans, and I have a couple of additional questions about student loans. Same ones that I shared with you just a second ago. Why are you taking out a loan? Why are you dealing with who you're dealing with? But additionally, why do you need that loan? Are you attempting to live on a student loan? Because, when I get a loan and I buy a car, at the end of the time, I've got a car. Will you have your education when you finish that particular student loan? Or are you still going to have fallen short? That's an important question to ask. Because student debt is, well, the big thing I always say is this, especially knowing what we see with federal loans and so forth. Regardless of what you think, you need to assume you're going to have to pay every one of your loans back. And I'm not going to ask for hands going up, but do any of you all not believe you're going to have to pay for those? Because I know some of you don't. In this environment, I probably would think twice about that, but you need to assume you're going to have to pay them back. So going from loans, let's talk about what I do on a daily basis. I'm the scholarship guy for the most part. Scholarships and the emergency fund, the student opportunity fund, and the homeless student scholarship, and all those types of scholarships. The first things that you need to do to maximize your opportunity to receive scholarships at Pellissippi State is go to financial aid, fill out your FAFSA as early as you can. There are some state funds that are available if you get that applied to almost immediately when it's opened up. So fill out your FAFSA, work with your financial aid counselors to seek their advice as far as other opportunities you may have to receive some grants or other state funding that you don't have to pay back. The best way to avoid student loans is to not have to take them if you can. So from there, the same thing applies to the Pellissippi State scholarship process. You only fill out one scholarship application. It only takes 5 minutes. So as soon as that application opens, apply right away. Our application for fall opens every year, March 1st, and that will cover fall, spring, and summer. You fill out the one application and our system will auto match you to the pools for consideration for every single scholarship you meet the criteria for. So you got a pretty good opportunity if you filled out that FAFSA in a timely fashion and you fill out that scholarship application. But let's go a step further. You find our flyers all around campus. I send them out via email. They're stuck all over the place. But if you'll go to that flyer and just look at the QR code, put your phone up like you're supposed to, takes you to the specific site. Scroll down that site. It's got frequently asked questions, but most importantly, there are third-party scholarships that are posted as well. These have been vetted, and they're third-party entities, the East Tennessee Foundation in particular, which are providing a significant amount of scholarships over and above what you get from just simply applying through the Pellissippi State system. So this is additional free money. Once again, can we reduce the amount of loans you have to take? By taking advantage of both Pellissippi State scholarships and third-party scholarships that are reputable. There's some really bad people out there with some of those. And if they're not on our page, don't give those people any personal information, because every once in a while something is there and is somebody up to no good. But did you know, in addition to the Pellissippi State scholarships, that the college offers additional scholarships that may be provided if you're providing some sort of service within the college? The music program has a tremendous amount of music scholarships that are awarded that are service scholarships. Some of them are as high as $2,000 a semester. So it's very significant. The SAE motorsports program that we have, that a lot of our engineering students and our welders are involved with, there are service scholarships there. There's service scholarships in theater. There's service scholarships in art. These are some additional opportunities that you may have no idea about. A good place to start is by filling out your standard Pellissippi State scholarship application, because we do administer those other funds, even though the money is actually coming from the college and not from the Pellissippi State Foundation. So these are a lot of just very small things that may help you eliminate or possibly reduce the need to try to undertake trying to pay off student loans. We had, my wife and I had about $5,000, which was worth a lot more money back in 1986, but it took a while to pay those loans off. And I understand how hard it is. So if you can keep those to a minimum, I think life's going to be a lot easier as you move forward with a college degree and enter the workforce. And as our previous presenter said, taking advantage of those 401k matches and opportunities where someone is paying money on your behalf when you begin to work, you've got to take advantage of those. Doesn't mean you have to pay additional funds into a 401k, but it does mean you want to pay up to the matching amount. So before we go any further, and I don't have a whole lot more to say, do you all have questions? I am more than happy to answer any questions that you all might have. Okay, one I see here, how do you navigate all of the many loans that are out there? How do you know if a loan is good or not? And I invite our previous speaker to chime in as well with this. That's a good question. When you start with federal loans, many of which that are subsidized, and you can qualify for those through financial aid, those are some of the safer loans that are out there. You're not chancing getting hit by extreme interest rates or some terms that could really cost you a lot of money. Those are very important. If you have an idea of what interest rates look like and at this time, if you're going to somebody and you're seeing something significantly higher, I would run the other way. Or if you hear something like a balloon payment. Balloon payments are where you only pay part of that loan and you're making your payments, and then you get to the back end and you have to pay a very, very large bit of money, that suddenly you may realize that you don't have the money to pay, and you suddenly get into a cycle where things may be inflated further beyond what you expected to have to pay back. Financial aid can be a very good source of identifying reputable places for you to look at student loans. But that's a great question, and I'm glad that one was asked. Let's look at some of the others.
I was going to piggyback back off of that and say, I think the biggest reason I got into so much student loan debt is because I wasn't aware of the resources that were available to me. Take advantage of resources like webinars like this, financial aid, your counselors. I mean, it's unbelievable what you can do when you have the knowledge that it's even accessible to you. And I would also say, you definitely look at the average interest rate of the loan that you're pursuing. That way you can, know when you're going to be like doubling the interest rate. That's probably not a good loan. So definitely take advantage of resources and do your due diligence, look up what these loans, what the averages are. And yeah, I would just say, I agree with that for sure.
I did see another interesting question, and don't feel like your questions are being skipped. We will come back to you, but there's a very good one. As a full-time student who is working full-time, I have very little time available for a side hustle, as it's put. What do you recommend? Some other things that happen within the college that a lot of folks are not aware of is, you could be going to school full-time, going to classes full-time. Is there anything else you can do? We do have the ability for people to work on campus, and they receive, a fair bit of money toward their college. That may be one opportunity. Looking at, are there things I can do that aren't going to take a tremendous amount of my time, especially if I'm having to drive from one place to another. That can really create some challenges. If you're working full time, you probably can't do a whole lot more. I would spend most of my time focusing on those other things that we've talked about, where there's third-party scholarships, where there are service scholarships at the college. And I will send out through our student listserv additional third-party opportunities that may only be open for a very short period. I would watch those on a regular basis. There are a couple that have a preference to females. There are some that have a preference to people in engineering and engineering and manufacturing in particular. Those are some additional opportunities that could bring in some of those additional funds. The other thing I would mention is that we have a lot of grant funded scholarship opportunities. The Gene Haas scholarship being one of them. We have some others, NASA, that falls into that category, where there can be some very significant funds available for at least, it could be a full year, it could be a full 2 years. So those opportunities, if you're in one of the fields that qualifies, that is a huge opportunity. And a lot of times we struggle to get students to actually apply for those. And that's some of the largest scholarships we have in the college.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes the answer is just that there is nothing else you can do at this moment in your life. And that's okay. I mean, you're a student, you're working towards your future, you're already working to pay for your education. I would say, if you don't have time for a side hustle, it's okay. If you want a higher paying job, look at other opportunities out there. I mean, right now it is an employer market. It's very competitive right now. So if you're in a position to hop jobs, go for it, or negotiate your salary. But if you can't do either one of those, focus on your studies, focus on getting into a better place in life. That's what I would say.
That is a great point. Great point. The only other thing I wanted to mention as far as college resources go are to make sure that you're aware of some of the resources that we have. Let's start with, you've encountered a crisis, financial crisis, and you may have to drop out of school. Some of you may have been there. We have a fund called the Student Opportunity Fund. You can simply type an email to SOF, Student Opportunity Fund, SOF at pstcc.edu. Tell us what's going on and why you would need assistance. We can provide up to $500 depending on the situation. We have additional resources that if it's a particular situation that would warrant it, to where we may be able to pull some additional funds from other scholarship locations. But that's a fund to be aware of. If you're at that point, there are people here to help you. You're struggling with food. We have a food pantry that serves all 5 campuses. And there's not a lot of questions asked there. Take advantage of that if you need it. If you're facing homelessness or you're in danger of losing your housing, you can go to SOF, you can go to Dreama Bowers, Director of Student, let me think of her official title. And I'm sorry, I've lost it just suddenly, but
Is it
Dreama
Student Care and
Bowers.
Advocacy?
That's it, thank you. Student Care and Advocacy, Dreama can work with you not only on situations such as housing, but she can connect you with community resources. Once again, that's additional funding available that you don't always have to pay back, that's out there if you need it, instead of just suddenly turning for some maybe shady student type loan. You go to the wrong guy and they try to prey on you as a student. And unfortunately, there are a lot of those. But those are the resource. That's the big resource package that I think will help you to at least try to minimize your student loans. And then you look at some other things that have been shared today about how you then can start paying those down if you have them. And as both myself and our speaker today, I think we can both speak to the feeling that you get when you've paid off the bulk of that debt. It's like lifting the whole world off your shoulders. And then you can decide to do things like, do you want to give back? Things like that you can decide. What's important to you moving forward? Do you want to be rich? Or do you just want to be satisfied and live in a place that makes you happy for the rest of your life? And that may not be having $1 million. It may be just being able to pay your bills and be with somebody that you like to be with and live a very satisfying life. So if y'all have other questions, you feel free to ask. Shoot me an email as far as that goes, and I'd be glad to get back with you. And forgive me for not putting an email up, but I'm at dlharrell@pstcc.edu. And I think my name's all over stuff with the foundation, so y'all can go there and find my information very easily.
I was going to say, to piggyback off of you, I think becoming debt-free allowed me to open my various businesses and live my life the way I want to. It is 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, and after this, I'm probably going to take a nap because I can. And that's just kind of the life that I've been able to build, and that wouldn't have been possible without becoming debt-free. And I also didn't put my email on my presentation. So it is VEE@VFruitfulFox.com.
Okay, so really quick before we just finish off those last questions, I do want to also type in the chat a few other contacts in our financial aid department who have been more than willing to help. The first is Anisha Brown. She's very helpful, very kind, just an individual that is really wanting to help us. Another one is Jacob Moore. So I will leave all of their emails along with David Harrell's and Vee's in there. And the last part that I would like to talk about is our survey. So before we end this, I'm also going to link a survey in the chat. If you guys could take that and just tell me what you've learned, what you took away from this, it just kind of helps me better understand how to plan future events for you guys. So with that being said, would you guys like me to read out the questions and feel like an answer? Okay, so this one, what keeps you motivated to stay debt-free when you are in a rough spot?
I think the biggest thing is understanding your why. Why do you want to become debt-free? For me, it was freedom. It was being able to have an autonomous life. It was being able to take naps on Tuesday afternoons or go to Rocky Mountain National Park for a week and not have to ask anybody for PTO. It was to build wealth for my family. I'm child free by choice. So all the money that I build will be going to my nieces. So they're a huge reason why. When you are unmotivated and you don't want to do anything and you just want to say, screw this, I think about the end game, really. And I will also say, one of the resources, Go Budget Girl, her name's Sarah Wilson. She has a YouTube channel. She also has an Etsy page with physical charts that you can print out. And when I was going through my debt-free journey, no one had these charts that you could print out. So I made my own really janky looking charts. But like I kept a chart at my desk at work. I kept a chart on my refrigerator. I kept a chart in the mirror in the bathroom. And I would literally color in every $1,000 that I would pay off. So visual aids keep you motivated. Surrounding yourself with people on Instagram, that was for me. I mean, I surrounded myself with people who were on the same journey and just knowing the end game.
I would add one other thing that I found is sometimes it's celebrating those really, really small victories. If you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you can find just a small thing that's been a victory, celebrate those. And sometimes, like when you get to the first of maybe 5 different items that you owe on and you get it paid off, it's the best feeling ever. But then you may get a setback, and it's just trying to celebrate those little victories along the way.
Those are really great answers. Thank you both. So moving on to our next question. Someone asked, investing feels really overwhelming. How did you get into the world of investing? How do you recommend investing? How do you know what is a good investment?
Yeah, it is really overwhelming. There is a lot of information out there. So how do you get into the world of investing? I would really recommend following @Delianne the Money Coach. She's in my resources. She is a wonderful resource on how to invest, why it's important, how investing has changed her life. Reading The Simple Path to Wealth is also a wonderful book I recommend. And then YouTubing index funds. Getting into the world of investing can be definitely overwhelming, but I think once you learn the terms, what I did at the very beginning is I went to investopedia.com and I would just look up terms and I had a notebook and I would write down terms and I would try to not necessarily memorize, but get a better feel about it. And then I went and I looked up people that were investing in the personal finance community. @Personal Finance Club is also a great resource. @Save My Cents, CENTS. She's a great resource. And these are all on my slideshow. And if anybody wants it, please let me know. But it's just really starting to put yourself in places where investing is common practice and common knowledge and common language. How much do I recommend investing? I can't recommend that without knowing your entire budget or your time horizon or anything like that. So it's very dependent on where you're at in life and your income. And how do you know what a good investment is? Usually, if it's an index fund or a low cost ETF, make sure that you are paying attention to what is actually in the index fund. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of research, but once you get the hang of it, it can be very easy. Once I found VTI and index funds, I literally buy it once a month and then I'm done. That's all I do. So yeah.
No, that was a great answer. I really think that'll help myself and others and whoever asked find some resources and start investing, because it really does seem something that could benefit a lot of college students. So moving on to our next question. Someone asked, how can I start a budget when I'm already living paycheck to paycheck?
I've been there. All I can say is do create a budget, even if you feel like it's useless, create a budget. And also focus on increasing your income. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you need to increase your income and take a serious, hard look at your spending. Because most of the time, it's a spending problem. Cut where you can. Increasing your income, decreasing your spending. And the gap in between is what's going to make you not live paycheck to paycheck.
Would you recommend kind of identifying needs and wants a little bit better when creating a budget?
Yeah, I think the needs and wants are argument. It depends on how strapped for cash or wiggle room you are in your budget. People's needs and wants are going to vary between person to person. I mean, needs are transportation, utilities, housing, and food. That's it. Those are your 4 needs that you need to survive. Anything extra is a want. Restaurants are a want. Subscription services are a want. Stuff like that is a want. But I think that you just have to be really honest with yourself. And I find a lot of time when people start budgeting or they start realizing like, oh, I am living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of the time they don't want to face the fact that they are living above their means. And I'm not saying cut out everything. People seem to go to the extreme end. I'm just saying you can cut back, try. What I say is go through the last 3 months of your bank statements, average them out. That way you have a good idea of what you're actually spending, and then try to decrease each category by some amount. And that difference will help you put a buffer into your checking account. You'll feel a little less strapped for cash. You won't be so paycheck to paycheck.
That is a very great answer and a very good strategy. So I think this is our last question. Does a 401k follow you between jobs and states?
No. So a 401k usually stays where you opened it, but there is a service. I think it's Capitalize. I think that's what it is. Where you call them and they will research where your 401ks are, and they will help you roll it over into your current employer's 401k or a new account. They're a free service. It's an incredible service because tracking all of that down can be almost impossible depending on how many jobs you've had. But yeah, I absolutely highly recommend doing that so that you can take advantage of compound interest no matter where you're working.
Well, thank you both to Vee and David to answering our questions and presenting all this wonderful information. I know I'm taking away a lot from today, and I hope everyone else is too. So I have not noticed any further questions or anything else like that. So I'm just going to give it maybe about a minute just so y'all can roll in any last minute questions. And then we can get out of here. But thank you guys all again so much for coming. Thank you for our speakers. This was truly so much better than I could have ever imagined.
While we wait to see if any other questions come in, I did want to mention, kind of calling back to what David was talking about in terms of scholarships and accessing those as PTK members. Everyone should know by now, right? We have access to, I mean, thousands, if not millions of dollars in scholarships just for being a PTK member. And oftentimes those stack upon other scholarships that you get. So with that in mind, a gentle reminder that a week from tomorrow, your PTK competitive scholarship application is due. So that's December 1st by 5 p.m. Central, so 6 p.m. Eastern. Of course, I recommend setting a deadline earlier because everyone's going to be trying to submit their application at the same time, and that could clearly make everything crash. So if you're not already on that task, this weekend is a great time to do it.
Okay, so I have not noticed any other questions. So on that note, I think we're ready to close this. So once again, just to say thank you. I really appreciate everything, and I hope to see you all again soon in future projects. Goodbye, everyone.